people do things often out of a feeling of like necessity, like I have to do this or else, like everything's on the line, like you were talking about that yesterday. Where, life has this tendency to make you feel like everything is on the line. It's so important. But when you meditate and you take a step back, you're like, nothing's really on the line here. What's on the line? My identity, whether or not I'll be comfortable, like whether or not somebody will appreciate me or like me for doing X, Y, or Z. What's on the line exactly? So you have to take a step back and see exactly what life is about. This doesn't mean that responsibilities are not important to follow through. If you have to feed your kids, that's on the line for real. You have a responsibility. You don't get out of that because you meditated. I meditated, I feel really good. I don't need to feed my kids anymore. I thought I had a responsibility. Don't have it. I realize it's not mine. It's my 3-year-old kid's responsibility to feed themselves. It's like this more delusion that happens. This stuff actually happens on the path. So you do have responsibilities. They're very real. You're in this game. They're very real. And how you function with them and interact with them is very important. But at the same time, there's a whole nother level where there's no stress within you. That part it knows nothing's on the line. You have multiple parts. You have one part that's the, you can say it's the cosmic self. You have another part that's like the divine personal. It's like bigger than life personal. It's like the cosmos functioning through the personal. And then there may also be another part which is more like the ego, more like the personal. It still has desires, wishes, karmic patterns it has to get through, whatever's there. And you can grow into contact with these aspects of yourself. When you become cosmic, you don't leave the personal. Just like when you grow up and you become an adult and then you have a child, you don't abandon your child. People have this tendency to believe that when you transcend, you abandon things. You're like somehow you have the ability to let go of basic responsibilities, but you have basic responsibilities. So that's the personal game. And when you transcend, it never excuses like virtue. Like you don't get to say, it doesn't matter. I don't need to do it. I'm transcended. I'm beyond. I'm in higher consciousness. Therefore, I don't have to tend to my responsibilities. The personal levels always regulate and govern your future and your present moment and your ability to transcend based off of virtue. Choosing virtue at any time. Maya will serve up a difficult situation, and it's like, kind of the whole idea of like the angel on one side of your shoulder and the devil on the other. It's kind of like, which side do you choose? The good direction, which is good, and the other one that you're like, well, maybe no one will notice. It's probably fine. And I'll get what I want. I'll be happy, and probably not the right thing to do, but no one will know. It'll just be my secret. And it's like, you have to kind of really, that's one of those inner ones where no one would know outside. You have to be very careful with the decisions that you make, because each one that you take, every decision you take that is lacking some degree of virtue is, putting a stain in the mind and in the heart. And this is going to make it harder to meditate, harder to diffuse, harder to attune, harder to connect. Like we were saying yesterday, like you can attune, but like anytime during the intention to attune, if you decide to, get reactive, it's your choice. If you decide to get reactive, then you break your ability to attune. And it will come back, but it may not be for the next 5 hours. It doesn't work like that, where you get to call the shots. You called the shot in a sense, which was, corrode me with the lack of virtuous expression, and then you lose the ability to attune to purity. If I choose to attune to some energy, which is some sense of purity, and I choose to do something in opposition to it, I'm literally putting down walls that block me or encase me in my own muck that prevent me from connecting. So if I want to connect to the energy of purity, but then yet I do some impure thing, I will corrode myself with the energy of impurity and not find purity. So then I'm disconnected. And someone could say, connect to the energy, but you're not going to find the energy. It'll feel like it's just not present. Same thing goes too if you're trying to connect to a subtle energy, which they're all technically subtle, but you're trying to connect to a subtle energy, but if you overindulge in dinner, it may, whether in anything, what talk or eating or something like that, and all of the talk and all of the dinner, the sensory, gripping is this direction. Then when it comes to right after, let's connect to a subtle energy, you might find, I can't feel anything. Well, you just spent however long, an hour or two, training yourself to unattune. And then when we get to attune, it's not that easy where you can just bounce back. There's lag time. So this is true for everyone on earth. No one's exempt. It's true for me too. So it's just, this is how it works. So knowing this is a great thing because it helps you get more control over how efficient you are as a meditator and how efficient you are as a person who can connect to subtle energy. You become extra efficient. You become very focused, very disciplined, but in an inner way. You can still be joyful and all that externally. What matters is the degree of attunement that you have internally. Not so much how you necessarily interact in the world. You can still be jokey, you can be serious, you can be quiet, you can be talkative, but it depends on your inner attunement. Can you really sense life? So, and this life is something that you have to take very seriously because everything that you do is going to, strictly speaking, have some sort of a stain, a closing on you or an opening. Everything that you do, everything that you think, every way that you act, it all is contributing to it. And that's why also the bigger paths are harder because they require you to not fail pretty consistently, which is pretty hard. Because everything you do, it's like, oh man, and it's like so many parts are kind of misattuning, and then it's like trying to attune. It just feels so complicated. Having a small path, it's easier for this reason, is that somebody could commit a sin, so to speak, do something that tarnishes them, blocks them from connecting to certain energies. But in this path, the one that you're on for your spiritual progression, you might find that you're still able to bounce back quicker because it's not directly affecting that one all of the time. Sometimes it will, but all of the time it won't be affecting that particular path, so it may remain open. This is what happens when you see spiritual teachers that have some degree of energy or transmission or, some quality of into the awakening process and yet live their life completely out of touch with whatever supposedly the philosophy is that they're preaching. So there has to be, in some ways, some total alignment, and that's not an easy thing. I always tell people in this world, don't expect any perfect teachers. Then you'll never be disappointed. So just be okay with the fact that you're not living in a perfect realm, and you have to take more consideration into your own karma. How did you get to this realm? How did you get to a realm? What kind of karma do you have that got you to a realm where, beings, sentient beings in bodies, eat other beings? Eating animals and killing things, don't care. They kill them for fun, for hunting, and, we pollute the world we live on, so we don't really care so much about the condition of the environment. Obviously some do, and we kind of just live however we want to live. And we get lost in things, you get short-sighted, people are so interested in, creating some identity for themselves rather than looking beyond. So there's so much stuff, and I can keep going, but I'm sure you can fill in the blank of, you're in a world that has a lot of that stuff, plus it has tons of corrupt religions and spiritual traditions and things like that. So
everyone's crazy.
Many people are, not everyone, but many people are crazy for sure. And it's not to blame the world, it's to say, you have to take on, this path is not about blaming people or situations. You never should blame the world or blame even corrupt religions and this and that. It's not, this isn't a blaming game. That doesn't help you. Blaming people never helps you evolve. It just makes you get angry and bitter. So I'm not even saying this as a way to just point and be like, this is a horrible world. And I don't think about it like that. I think about it like a very precious learning environment that we're all a part of. But you have to consider the reality here is that you're in this realm. I'm in this realm. So we're all in this realm. So you have to take full responsibility and just say, okay, I am not a completely pure person. That's okay. I'm going to try to clean up my act. So look at yourself like you're in a realm where you're specifically here to reconcile some problems that you have, some karmas, to heal, and to take more responsibility for your life, your path, your future, your spiritual, disciplines. Spirituality, another word for that, can be purity. So if you have any habits that don't match with virtue or purity, you know they're not spiritual. So just understand that when you give in to something that lacks virtue, some mechanism of mind or emotion or heart, or some sensory experiences where you're overindulging, whenever you do that, and just say to yourself, this isn't spiritual. Therefore, when I do this, I'm cutting off my connection to my soul or to myself to some degree. Not completely, but to some degree. And even if you tried really hard to cut off all your connections, make it impossible to find your soul, you'll find it still. Maybe not in this lifetime, but you will find it again. You don't lose anything forever. So you never have to feel permanently guilty about anything. Like if you trashed yourself completely and just did whatever you wanted to do and lived a completely unmindful life and ruined it for a lot of people, you'll have all that karma. That's your karma. No one can help you. You have to help yourself with that karma. You have to live through it. Usually it creates suffering for you in a lot of different ways. In ways sometimes you can't expect it or plan it, but it comes. And it's not here to punish you. It's here to give you the point of view I was saying before. It's like taking on a compassionate point of view. So not just a person walking through a forest and saying, I can do what I want, but experiencing yourself in a sense as a tree watching the human walk through the forest. So if you do something to someone and it causes them pain, it comes back to you. So you can be like, 10 years later, oh, I can kind of understand what this is now. And I can see how this is not really a good way to act or think. And it happens as many times as needed to learn the lesson, is essentially it.